The Black Sheep Pays for Everything Part 1. Chapter 1, Prologue: A Golden Beginning. The Martin family had always known who their star was. From the moment Mason took his first steps, their mother gasped like she was witnessing a miracle. "He's gifted," she'd declared when he memorized the alphabet at age 3. "He's destined for great things." Their father would beam at every parent-teacher conference, even if Mason's grades weren't quite as stellar as they made them out to be. The family photo wall said it all. Mason in every sports uniform imaginable, even the ones he quit after a week. Mason in front of a science fair board someone else had helped him build. Mason at prom, smiling with manufactured charm, arms around a date who barely remembered his name a month later. In the background of those photos, if you looked closely, was another child. Not sad, just quiet. Watching. Always watching. Her name was Lila. The middle child. Her older sister, Harper, had already drifted into her own world of teenage rebellion and early independence by the time Mason was old enough to string sentences together. But Lila was different, still in the house, still trying. Trying to be heard. Trying to be seen. No matter how many awards Lila brought home, no matter how consistently she kept her grades high or how often teachers praised her as dependable or a real leader, it never sparked the kind of reaction Mason's bare minimum did. At Mason's 6th grade spelling bee, where he got out in the 3rd round, their mom brought balloons. When Lila won first place in the regional math competition 2 years later, her dad offered a distracted "good job, kid," before turning the conversation back to Mason's soccer tryouts. He hadn't even made the team. Still, Lila didn't complain. She learned early: don't make waves. Don't ask for more. Be useful, be quiet, and maybe, just maybe, someone would notice. But the golden child. He shone no matter what. When Mason turned 18 and got into a mediocre state college, the whole family treated it like a full scholarship to Harvard. Lila watched as they scraped together money to buy him a used car, just so he wouldn't feel left out. It didn't matter that she'd taken city buses for 4 years of high school. Mason couldn't be uncomfortable, not even for a day. And then came the bad grades. The party photos. The phone calls asking for more money. He said he was figuring things out. The family called it a phase. "It's normal," their mom would say, "he's just trying to find his passion." What Lila heard was, "He's allowed to fail." She wondered, sometimes, what it felt like, to be protected like that. To have everyone rally behind you no matter how many mistakes you made. What would it be like, she wondered, to fall without fear of losing everything? She didn't know. Because if Lila stumbled, there'd be no one there to catch her. The story began with Mason, always Mason. The golden beginning. The family's pride. And in that quiet, flickering shadow, stood Lila. The one no one noticed. Not yet. Chapter 2, Forgotten in Plain Sight. Lila Martin had always known how to disappear without leaving the room. It started in the small ways, moments too quiet for anyone to remember later. Like when she got her first A in 3rd grade science and held up the paper at the dinner table, her cheeks pink with pride. Her dad nodded once, eyes on the TV. Her mom was busy arguing with Harper, who'd slammed her door again. Mason had spilled juice and the moment dissolved into cleanup and scolding. No one said well done. No one hung the paper on the fridge. So she folded it neatly and tucked it into a showbox under her bed. That was where her victories lived, not in frames or family albums, but in silence. By age 10, Lila had learned to listen more than speak. To observe without reacting. Her teachers praised her maturity, her calm demeanor. Such a good helper, they'd say at conferences. A natural problem solver. At home, those same traits meant she wasn't a priority. Harper had her teenage tantrums and slammed doors. Mason, even as a child, knew how to pull focus, loud, needy, constantly testing boundaries. Their parents gravitated toward whichever fire needed putting out. Lila was water, invisible unless something was burning. She became the kid who didn't complain when her Christmas gift was a clearance sweater while Mason got a tablet. She became the one who didn't argue when her birthday cake was store-bought, while Mason's had custom fondant and a party at the skating rink. What Lila didn't realize then was that her reliability was being mistaken for self-sufficiency. She wasn't fine, she was coping. Her parents didn't ask how school was going unless there was a problem. There never was. She made sure of that. Straight A's. No missing assignments. No social drama. No boys. No rebellion. No noise. Even in her own head, her desires became whispers. She'd see art supply kits at the store and pause, just long enough to imagine what it would feel like to paint without worrying if it was useful. Then she'd keep walking. When Mason got into the local soccer club, a private one with hefty monthly dues, her mom picked up extra shifts. When Lila wanted to try piano, she was told they couldn't afford lessons. "You don't even like being the center of attention," her mother had said offhandedly, flipping through coupons. "Piano recitals would stress you out." It wasn't cruel. It wasn't even said unkindly. It was just dismissive. That was worse. No tantrums. No begging. Just a quiet, okay. By high school, Lila had developed a kind of invisible armor. She wore neutral colors. She joined clubs that didn't require driving to competitions. She never asked to borrow the car. Never needed money for last-minute field trips. She figured things out. Always. There was a moment, fleeting and small, during senior year that should have been hers. She was named valedictorian. Her guidance counselor called it an incredible achievement. Her English teacher teared up when she handed her the certificate. At home, the announcement was made over a dinner of reheated leftovers. "That's nice," her dad said between bites. "That reminds me," her mom added, reaching for her phone. "Mason wants us to come visit his apartment next weekend. He got a new roommate and wants to introduce him." And just like that, the moment was gone. Lila swallowed the burn in her chest and nodded. "Sounds good." She didn't mention that the graduation speech was expected to be personal. That she'd have to talk about her upbringing, her support system. What would she say? "Thanks to my family for ignoring me so thoroughly that I became entirely self-motivated." Instead, she wrote a speech about resilience and self-direction, values her parents claimed to admire but never seemed to notice when they lived in their daughter. Looking back now, Lila could see it clearly. How often she was praised outside the home, and how often that praise died the second she stepped through the front door. She was a star in other people's skies. But in her own house, she was the space between, useful only in her ability to hold everything together. Chapter 3, The First Sacrifice. It was the kind of envelope you didn't throw away. Heavy, embossed, and thick with promise, the letter from Ridgewater University arrived on a rainy Thursday afternoon. Lila found it in the mailbox, her name printed in elegant serif font across the front. Inside was the confirmation: she'd been accepted into their honors program, a full ride for academics, plus a stipend for living expenses. It was everything she'd worked for. Everything she hadn't dared hope for, in case it didn't happen. Ridgewater was 6 hours away by train. A prestigious private college nestled in a quiet New England town, with ivy-covered buildings and a world-class liberal arts department. They had a creative analytics program, a perfect blend of writing and data, the exact thing she had once described in an abandoned essay about her dream job. Lila sat on her bed that night and traced the letter with her fingertips. She didn't tell anyone right away. Not because she wanted to be dramatic, but because she wanted one thing, one sacred, perfect thing, to be hers for a moment. She waited until Sunday dinner. Everyone was home. Her mom had made baked ziti. Harper was visiting from out of town, distracted by texts. Mason had shown up late, tossing his keys on the counter like he owned the place. She noticed he had a new jacket. Branded. Expensive. She didn't ask where it came from. So Lila said, setting the envelope on the table. I got into Ridgewater. They offered a full scholarship. Her mother blinked. That's great, honey. That's the one in Vermont. Connecticut, Lila corrected softly. Oh, right. That's far, isn't it? Her dad asked. Lila nodded. 6 hours. But housing's covered. And I'd get a small stipend each semester. Harper whistled. Not bad. That's a legit school. Mason didn't say anything. He reached for the bready biscuit. Anyway, Lila continued, pulse steady but cautious, I was thinking it might finally be time to. We should talk about timing, her mom interrupted. You know how things are right now. Lila blinked. What do you mean? Her dad set his fork down. Mason's been going through a tough patch. I didn't mean to make it about me, Mason said, though somehow he had. What kind of patch? Lila asked carefully. Well, her mom said, sighing. He left school last semester. It just wasn't a good fit. I thought he was finishing his degree this year, Lila said. That's what we hoped, her dad said. But he needs time to find the right direction. He's staying here for a bit while he figures it out. I thought he had an apartment. He's subletting it, Mason mumbled. Needed cash. Lila did the math, the new jacket, the groceries in the fridge that week, the sudden pressure in her father's voice. She already knew what they were implying. And, what does this have to do with Ridgewater? She asked, keeping her tone even. Her mother gave her a strained smile. We're just asking if you might consider staying in state. Maybe take classes locally for the first year. Help out a little, just until things settle down. There it was. The ask, hidden inside the suggestion. A quiet plea dressed up as logic. A family-first moment disguised as reasonableness. She looked at Mason. He wouldn't meet her eyes. Lila's heart didn't sink. It simply deflated, as if it had expected this all along. She folded the letter back into its envelope, one deliberate crease at a time. Sure, she said, I can look at other options. No one thanked her. No one acknowledged what she'd just given up. No one saw it as a sacrifice. That week, she declined the offer from Ridgewater. She enrolled in the local commuter college, no dorms, no campus life. She moved her shifts at the bookstore to weekends and started driving Mason to his networking events when he didn't have gas money. By the end of the month, Mason had found himself in the form of an unpaid startup gig his friend had pitched over beers. Her parents bragged about his entrepreneurial spirit. Her mom posted a Facebook status about how proud she was to have two amazing kids finding their way. She didn't mention the third. Lila watched the comments pile up with likes and heart emojis. She closed the app and returned to the Ridgewater portal just once, enough to see the button marked decline offer still glowing on the screen. She clicked it. She didn't cry. Not because it didn't hurt, but because she couldn't afford to. She had work in the morning. Tuition to cover. Bills to help with. And the golden child still needed room to grow. Chapter 4, A Pattern Forms. The first bill came as a text. "Hey sis, you think you can cover my phone this month? They're threatening to shut it off and I got a job interview next week lol." Lila stared at the message for a moment. She had just finished her shift at the bookstore, her feet aching, her back sore. She'd been debating whether she could afford to buy a new pair of walking shoes. The soles of her old ones had split in 2 spots. But the message blinked on her screen, casual and light, like it wasn't a big deal. She sighed and sent the money. $48. Enough to keep Mason's phone on and her shoes falling apart. He didn't reply. No thank you. No got it. Just silence. That's when the pattern began. At first, it was little things: gas money for Mason, a late copay for Harper's doctor appointment, groceries when her parents came up short after their car needed new brakes. Lila had a flexible job and modest expenses. She wasn't rich, far from it, but she budgeted carefully and lived simply. She kept herself afloat so others could lean on her. They started calling it just a small favor. "Can you spot us for the electricity bill? We'll pay you back next week. Mason's insurance lapsed, and he can't drive to his internship. I accidentally overdrafted. Can you Venmo me like 20? It added up. 20 here. 65 there. 100 for groceries. 1 month it was over 500 total, nearly her entire rent, and she had to eat ramen for 2 weeks just to cover her own basics. Still, she never made a scene. She told herself it was temporary. That things would stabilize soon. But they didn't. Instead, the requests came more frequently, and with less hesitation. At first, they'd ask with soft voices and apologies. Later, they barely asked at all. "Hey, your dad said you can grab the water bill this month, right?" her mom said over the phone one Tuesday, the tone more declarative than questioning. "Sure," Lila murmured. A few days later, Harper texted. "I used your Netflix again. Hope that's okay." It wasn't, technically. Lila had been trying to lower her own bills and was considering canceling streaming altogether. But now she couldn't. Harper's kids were using it too. When she once hinted that it might be time for them to get their own account, Harper replied, "Seriously? It's like $15. You know I'm juggling daycare. I didn't think you were that petty." Lila didn't respond. What was once kindness had curdled into obligation. No one saw what she gave as generosity. They saw it as function. She had money, and therefore she was the one who should help. The idea that she might have needs of her own, goals, savings, a dream for something better, didn't even register. They'd say things like, "You're so stable, Lila," or "You've always been the one we could count on." At first, those words made her feel proud. Now, they felt like chains. When she turned 24, there was no party. Her mom sent a single-line text that said, "Happy birthday. Hope it's a good one. Things are tight this month, but love you." She didn't reply. She didn't expect a gift. She'd stopped expecting a lot of things. Instead, she baked a cupcake from a box mix in her apartment kitchen. She lit one candle and made a quiet wish, "I hope I'm not doing this forever." She didn't tell anyone. Didn't post on social media. The only person who remembered without a notification was a co-worker, who gave her a $5 coffee gift card. She felt more seen in that gesture than in decades of family interaction. Later that month, she logged into her bank account and counted. She had helped cover Mason's health insurance renewal, $112. Her parents' gas bill, $89. Groceries for Harper's kids, $67. Phone bill for Mason, again, $53. Streaming, subscriptions, and small forgotten payments, $40. She stared at the numbers. That was rent. That was a plane ticket somewhere. That was therapy, or a gym membership, or a night out with friends. That was her life, being slowly siphoned off one transaction at a time. She thought of Ridgewater. Of the dorm she never saw. Of the campus cafes and seminar rooms and long, tree-lined walks she gave up. And yet, no one had ever said thank you. Not once. It was just expected. That was her role. The stable one. The middle child. The fixer. The invisible net under a falling family that never even looked down to see her. A pattern had formed. And Lila was starting to realize, patterns, left unchecked, become cages. Chapter 5, Praise and Parade. The group chat exploded at 7:42 p.m. on a Tuesday. "Mom, big news. Mason, guess who's employed?" "Dad, my son. Finally got the offer." "Mom, we're so proud, Mason. I knew they'd love you." "Harper, yes." "What company?" "Mason, Apex Digital. Starting Monday. Full salary." WFH. Lila read the messages silently as they rolled in. No one had asked if she was free for a call, or how her work was going, or if she was still covering Harper's kids' school lunches. But that didn't matter, not in the face of Mason's miraculous achievement, employment. She stared at the screen for a moment, thumb hovering. Then she typed, "Lila, congrats." No emoji. No exclamation point. Just the bare minimum, because anything more felt dishonest. Her mother called the next morning, chipper and effervescent like she'd had champagne at breakfast. "Honey, did you hear the news? Mason got the job." "Yes," Lila said, folding laundry one-handed. "Saw it in the chat." "He's really turned a corner," her mother continued, as if Mason had just emerged from a soul-searching sabbatical and not 3 years of freeloading and networking. "That's great," Lila said flatly. "We want to throw him a celebration. Nothing huge, just family and a few of his friends. A catered thing, maybe in the backyard if the weather holds. You know he deserves it." Deserves. That word clanged like a dropped pan in Lila's head. "He's had a rough couple of years, but he's really worked hard on himself," her mom added. "We want to lift him up." Lila hesitated. "I mean, we'd love to do it properly," her mom went on, "but things are still a little tight on our end. We were wondering if you might be able to help out. You're always so good with this stuff." Good with this stuff meant fund it quietly and don't ask questions. How much are we talking? Lila asked. Oh, not much. We were thinking of getting those sliders from Carmine's, remember, from Harper's baby shower. Maybe that and a dessert bar. Just simple. Simple turned out to mean nearly $400. The caterer wanted a deposit up front. Her mom said she'd handle the rest, which of course meant Lila would probably never see another dollar come out of anyone else's wallet. Still, she paid it. She transferred the money. She said nothing. The party happened 2 Saturdays later. Lila showed up on time to help set up the tables. Mason showed up late with sunglasses and a bottle of bourbon someone else had gifted him. His hair looked expensively cut. His watch was new. His confidence was bloated. Everyone was there, family, old friends, Mason's new co-workers, even a few of their parents' church acquaintances who didn't really know Mason but wanted to support his big day. It looked like a graduation party. Like a retirement. Like some moment of long-awaited triumph. Lila stood near the food table, sipping lukewarm lemonade out of a plastic cup, listening to her father say to a family friend, "We always knew he'd get there. He just needed space to grow." Harper laughed beside them. "Classic Mason," she said. "Lands on his feet every time." They said it like it was luck. Like it was magic. Like the trampoline beneath him hadn't been Lila's hands, catching and cushioning every single fall. When the mini cheesecakes were served and people started clapping for Mason's little impromptu speech, "I just want to thank everyone for believing in me," Lila stared at her paper plate and wished she'd stayed home. She noticed no one had offered to reimburse her. No one had mentioned the money. Not even a text the next day. Later, she found herself in the kitchen helping clean up. Her mom gave her a tight hug. "You're such a rock, Lila. I honestly don't know what we'd do without you." It was meant as praise. But it felt like a life sentence. Lila nodded. She smiled. She threw away another empty catering tray. And in the quiet, she realized something cold and clear: when Mason failed, he got sympathy and second chances. When Lila succeeded, she got silence. When Mason got a job, he was given a party. When Lila paid for it, she was given a pat on the back and another dirty plate. This wasn't about love. This was about roles. And hers was never to shine, only to support. And still, no one said thank you. Chapter 6, Invisible Strings. The office lights flickered overhead, humming with the fatigue of late evening. Lila sat at her desk, eyes dry from staring too long at spreadsheets. Her shift had technically ended an hour ago, but she was still fielding emails. Budget discrepancies, last-minute requests, invoices someone else had forgotten to process. She rubbed the bridge of her nose with ink-smudged fingers and took another sip of cold coffee. Dinner would be another skipped meal or something microwavable at 10 p.m. Again. This wasn't the job she'd imagined for herself. She'd been hired as a financial assistant for a mid-size logistics firm right after graduation. It had seemed like a responsible stepping stone, stable, structured, and safe. But 5 years later, she was still in the same role. Promotions passed her by like clockwork. Management knew she could handle more, but they also knew she wouldn't complain if she didn't get it. She was efficient. Reliable. Low maintenance, her supervisor once called her, like she was a printer that never jammed. But the truth was, she hadn't pushed for advancement because she couldn't afford the risk. Every dollar mattered. There was always someone in the family who needed something. And every month, that someone changed. February, Harper's daughter needed new cleats for soccer, and Harper's budget was already maxed. March, her parents' boiler stopped working. They put it on a credit card, but the interest was suffocating. Lila offered to take over the minimum payments. April, Mason's car was towed after parking in a loading zone. He didn't have the cash for the fine. "I'll pay you back Friday," he texted. That was 6 Fridays ago. May, their father had dental work that wasn't covered by insurance. "Just help this once," her mom pleaded. "We'll figure it out next month." There was no next month. Not for them. But there always was for Lila. She worked weekends sometimes. She took on freelance budget balancing for a friend's startup, doing numbers into the night while her peers posted photos of weekend getaways and Sunday brunch. The idea of asking her family for a break, for one single month off, felt laughable. Even now, sitting in her cubicle long after most of the staff had gone home, she knew that the longer she stayed, the better chance she had of hitting her overtime threshold. That extra $85 could go toward the past due balance on her mom's prescription refills. It wasn't always so direct. Sometimes the needs were framed as updates, floating toward her like smoke signals. "I swear, I'm going to lose it," Harper texted one Tuesday. "Daycare just raised their rates again. Like, why even bother working? We're stretching it thin this month," her mom would say with a laugh. "Retirement is a joke." "Can't believe I'm still job hunting," Mason texted. "Might need to borrow your Amazon Prime again. You still got that, right?" They didn't ask, not always. But they implied. And Lila responded. Automatically. She'd Venmo $40 here, pay a bill directly there. Quietly. Predictably. Sometimes, she'd forget what she'd paid for. The lines between hers and theirs had blurred so completely that her own needs lived in the margins of other people's lives. There were weekends she meant to take for herself, to go hiking, to visit old college friends, to attend writing workshops or community classes. But by the time she'd finish transferring money, calculating what was left, and factoring in what might come up next, she always chose the same thing: stay home. Rest. Work extra. Save for the inevitable. It didn't even feel like martyrdom. It just felt automatic. A quiet life with invisible strings tying her limbs to everyone else's survival. She wasn't walking, she was being pulled. Sometimes, in the silence of her apartment, Lila would look at her old Ridgewater acceptance letter, still tucked between pages in a journal. The words had faded a little with time. But she hadn't thrown it out. She couldn't. Because every time she saw it, she remembered that a different life had once been offered to her. One where she might have become more than just useful. Her current job paid the bills. But it didn't feed her. It didn't stir anything inside her but quiet dread and the ticking of a wall clock that never seemed to slow down. Still, when payday came, she logged in. She paid her rent. She forwarded the utility payment to her parents. She sent Harper a grocery card. She split her remaining money 3 ways, a little for gas, a little for food, and a little to breathe. No vacations. No upgrades. No splurges. Just survival. Not for herself, for everyone else. And as the days blurred together, Lila couldn't help but wonder. If I stopped, what would happen? But she already knew the answer. They'd fall apart. And the worst part was, they would blame her for it. Chapter 7, Cracks in the Smile. The change didn't come with a scream. It came with silence. Lila had long ago mastered the smile. The practiced one, small, efficient, just enough to signal she was fine. Not happy, exactly, but stable. Manageable. Not a problem. That smile had been her armor since middle school. Now it was starting to chip. The first crack came at a dinner she didn't want to attend. Her mother had invited everyone over for a casual Sunday meal which, as always, meant Lila would show up early to help cook and stay late to help clean. She'd worked a 12-day stretch leading up to that weekend, full-time hours at the logistics firm, plus 2 side gigs. One as a remote transcriptionist, another doing data entry for a small business owner in Oregon. Her eyes stung from screens. Her back throbbed from stress. But no one asked if she needed rest. They asked if she could pick up dessert on the way. So she did. She showed up with 2 boxes of pastries and a bottle of wine, the good kind her dad liked, and as she handed them over, her mother said brightly, "You're such a sweetheart. Mason, look, your sister brought your favorite." Mason glanced up from his phone and gave a 2-finger wave. "Nice," he muttered. That was the thank you. During dinner, the conversation orbited Mason's job again. He'd been working there for 3 months and already talked like he was running the place. "I've got 2 guys reporting to me now," he said, spearing a forkful of lasagna. "Not officially, but, like, they take my lead. Everyone's always asking for my input." Natural leader, their father beamed. "I always said he was born for business," their mom chimed in. Lila cut her salad quietly. She thought about the spreadsheet she'd balanced before coming over. About how she'd caught and corrected $3,000 in vendor overcharges for her firm, the kind of mistake that would have cost the company a client. No one there had praised her either. She didn't speak. Not yet. Later, in the kitchen, while scraping plates into the sink, Harper asked, "How's work going for you, anyway?" It was the first time someone had asked in weeks. Lila paused. "It's a lot," she said. "I'm tired all the time. I've been taking on extra hours just to keep up. And Oh, same," Harper interrupted, pulling out her phone. "Having kids is no joke, you know." Lila nodded slowly. She was used to being cut off. But this time it stung in a new way, like her voice had been measured and found unimportant. On the drive home, she didn't turn on music. She drove in silence, hands clenched too tightly around the steering wheel, her face still frozen in the pleasant expression she'd learned to maintain from years of being everyone's calm, dependable center. But underneath, something was simmering. The second crack came at work. Her manager had praised a junior employee during a meeting for going above and beyond by staying an hour late to finish a report. Lila had stayed 3 hours late 2 nights in a row that week, and no one mentioned it. She wasn't angry at the new employee. She was angry at the invisibility of her effort. At how being consistent had made her easy to ignore. She smiled in the meeting. She congratulated the employee. But later, while she was alone at her desk, she clenched her jaw so hard her temples ached. The third crack came during a phone call from her mom. "Just checking in," her mom said. "Mason's thinking about getting a new car. Something more reliable. He says his credit isn't great right now, but maybe you could help him co-sign." Lila stared at the wall. A dull ringing started in her ears. "I can't," she said. Flat. Clear. Her mother paused. What do you mean? It wouldn't affect you, really. It would affect me, Lila snapped before she could stop herself. You're asking me to risk my financial future so Mason can drive something with Bluetooth. There was a stunned silence. Well, there's no need to get snippy, her mother said quietly. I'm not being snippy, Lila said. I'm being honest. That night, she lay in bed, her stomach twisting. She wasn't used to saying no. She wasn't used to letting the resentment rise above the surface. But now it was bubbling there all the time, just under her skin. Every time someone ignored her exhaustion. Every time they bypassed her struggle to ask for more money. Every time they smiled and said she was so put together while expecting her to unravel to hold everyone else together. They didn't ask how she was doing. Not really. Because they didn't want to know. She was always fine because being fine made her useful. Being fine meant she wouldn't need anything. Wouldn't make demands. Wouldn't shift the spotlight away from Mason or Harper or whoever the family's latest center happened to be. But Lila wasn't fine. She was tired. She was angry. And most of all, she was starting to see the truth. The smile they loved so much wasn't hers. It was theirs, something she'd worn like a mask to keep the peace. And now it was cracking. And when it finally broke, she wasn't sure who would recognize the person underneath.
They lied. They cheated. They betrayed the one person who gave them everything. But guess what? The truth always finds a voice, and here, it screams. If you live for chaos, loyalty gone wrong, and revenge served cold. Like this video. Drop a comment. And hit subscribe, because on Family Drama Unleashed, we don't forgive, and we never forget. Tap that bell, because the next betrayal? It's already on its way.